When I take the time to come into the stillness of the present moment, I forget what leading up to this and getting ready to create the video that I'm thinking about, the agenda that I have, whether I like it or not. It's just the mind knowing what's coming up and wanting to pre-plan it as it does. It's resistance to just being in the moment. Why? Because of trauma, because of a feeling of persistent lack of safety and shortage. That if I don't pre-plan it or prearrange, there will be some failure, there will be some danger or loss of something. So I tell myself, I can trust myself. I can trust that in the moment, what's right will be present. What's needed downshifting. What's needed will be present. What's needed is a bit more fresh air. I'm going to open the door. The whole point of this is to be speaking authentically, spontaneously, not scripted. I want to be able to speak from my soul, or from a deeper place than this contrived persona, which has its purpose, but often becomes rootless. It serves its own purpose. It gets its own agenda that isn't that fulfilling, right? I think at a certain point in life you realize, like, it's not fulfilling to just be kind of meeting these ego gratification programs. And again, they're not wrong. Like, for example, this whole thing around appearance, like attractiveness and your presentation to the world as far as your attractiveness. And I think that we know that the people that we are really attracted to actually seem quite effortless. They're not all painted up. They're not all of that efforting, the Botox or the injections or the theater of it, when it's obvious that it's like has taken effort, it totally backfires. It's not at all appealing. When I see people with tons of jewelry and labels and brands and all this stuff, it's like, I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for them because they're just so out of touch with themselves, and they're compensating. They don't feel that they're good enough. And again, perhaps we always are going to not feel entirely good enough. That may be like, this a Saturnian effect in our every one of us. But something that I'm very, very interested in, very excited about is for one, using astrology for self-reflection, using various tools for self-reflection, obviously using meditation, using writing, using video, and astrology. So understanding how, when we look at our astrology chart and we understand the energies that are really affecting all of us, but affecting us in different ways. And when they're affecting us in an unconscious way, then it's going to be the lower manifestation of it. Often the dysfunctional one, the driving with the brake on one, which causes a lot of friction. We may be torn inside because part of us is pulling this way and part of us is pulling this way. So in self-reflecting, especially learning about understanding and integrating those archetypes and those energies, then we can, instead of being done to by them, we can claim them as our own. My chart has some difficult elements in it, and I think that's when it becomes really important, when you have things that have difficult aspects, such as oppositions and squares, or you have planets that are in signs that they're not very comfortable in. They're in their fall or detriment, which I have a number of. I think it's because the soul is wanting a challenge. It's wanting to expand some of the unusual nuances, the unique components of life that are important. Most people aren't doing them, so it's kind of a specialist. I mean, we're all specialists in our own lives, but I think just like in the regular world, there are people that specialize in certain things, and most of us don't even grasp what they do or how they do it. And we're not caught out for that. They have a certain personality type or a certain interest that allows them to focus that way and master those things. And I've been investigating astrology for a long time, but that doesn't mean that I mastered it, because I think it's a lifelong thing. It's so complex and it's so nuanced. Each person is unique with their configuration, and an astrologer can't just look at a chart and analyze it purely analytically. There has to be some intuitive and kind of abstract way of assessing, a kind of psychic assessment, because the energies and the archetypes are beyond just the physical world. they speak about the multidimensional and spiritual nature of reality. And so it's difficult for our minds to even grasp a lot of it. Even the whole language of astrology is a representation. It's a stepping down of that system of the solar system, that energetic and archetypal influence and framework that we exist in. And yeah, so most people don't have an awareness of it. But once you get to a certain stage, I think, where you're trying to understand the purpose and meaning of life, and you start exploring things, and you come across astrology, and you realize, especially when you know, if you have somebody that can help you learn about it, or if you just read a bunch of books and watch videos and come to understand, and then look at your own chart, even if it's not clear, you get little glimpses, you get little whispers. Something might be described and you're like, am I like that? And in that questioning, am I like that? There is self-reflection. So every time we're listening and we're like, oh yeah, I'm like that. Oh, that's not quite, I'm not really like that, or I'm a little bit like that, or sometimes I'm like that. All of that is self-reflection. And it's all very useful. So you're also being impressed with the archetypes, and you're learning about the spectrum of experience. So this is something that's also very important in tarot. It's a very similar system, completely interrelated. And it's just kind of two formats of learning about the same archetypes and the same spectrum of reality. And as we learn about these things, as we learn about tarot, there's a kind of initiation. There's an impressing on, at very least, the mental body of these different energies and archetypes. And we start to kind of expand psychically by learning about these things. And inevitably, having some grasp, at least, of the whole system, the nature of reality. Working with tarot and astrology is a education in understanding reality, at least reality that humans live in this solar system. That's what it is based on. So beyond the solar system, reality may be quite different. But this is where we live, this is where we exist, this is where we're manifesting, and so these are the archetypes and energies. In examining mine, for a long time I've had different ideas and different impressions and different thoughts, but right now I'm going through something that I can see is well, there have been a number of things, as there always are, these transits, but I'm experiencing right now a very significant transit, which is Chiron return. And this happens around the age of 50, so it's likely only to happen once in your life. And for me, being that I have Chiron conjunct my sun in my natal chart, it's a big deal. This is a reactivation of my core wound. Everybody has Chiron, so everybody has a core wound of some kind. But because for me, my sun and Chiron are in the same place in the chart, then it means that that it's that chironic wound is hugely significant to me in my life. And what I believe that means is that I am a wounded healer, especially since my sun is in Aries, and the message of identity, which is, the sun is all about the core of our being and our core identity. And each sign has its statement. And Aries being the first sign, its statement is I am. So it's about identity, it's forming identity, it's the first sign. And so having Chiron conjunct my sun in Aries, this is what I'm really, really investigating right now, as Chiron is again in that same place, sitting conjunct my sun and Chiron in my natal chart. So it's really reactivating it. And it's also doing this, it's done this retrograde thing, and it moves quite slowly. So it's hanging out there. It's been hanging out there, and it's going to be hanging out there until into 2027, I believe. So this is like a deep revisiting of my core wound and my identity as a wounded healer. So I've had some awareness of this even before this transit, but I didn't really know what that meant. I think that I was just still in this wounded place, and that wound has been significant. I've gone through life feeling wounded. And now I think is an opportunity to really have that all kind of ripen into this place of maybe it doesn't mean healing the wound. Maybe as Chiron is about having a wound that doesn't heal entirely. There's some amelioration in the recognition of it, so in the owning of it. And in a previous video, I was talking about being a dark empath. I'm not sure if that was yesterday or the day before, but I kind of just spontaneously had this idea that I am, and then I investigated more, and there's different explanations. Some saying it's very, it's like a type of a dark triad personality. And then other ones saying, no, it's essentially an empath who is highly sensitive and takes on the world's, kind of is the world's vacuum cleaner, and is absorbing negative energy to transform it. There's various things, and some of the stuff that it seemed Carl Jung, I'm not sure if he used that actual term, but he was describing it, and that was kind of affirming, listening to that stuff, which I don't even remember the exact details, but it because I don't really want to put myself in a box, but these things, these labels and these archetypes and identities, they're like stepping stones or touchstones. They help us kind of navigate the world and our own minds and communicate those to others. So I think it's well, again, because I have the sun and Chiron in the third house. It's Gemini's house, so it's about communicating. It's about that. It's about the mind and its impact on those around you. those able within the proximity of hearing your voice. And so anybody, that includes anybody listening to this video, especially since this is a kind of raw thing. So it's this interesting paradox of like how the world is shrinking, and we can have such like personal conversations with somebody on the other side of the world. Also, Pluto is now going through my first house, because Aquarius is in my first house. So I have Capricorn rising, but the first house soon becomes Aquarius. And I think that's significant too, because Pluto is emphasized in my chart. I have a lot of Scorpio, and I have Pluto in the 8th house. So it again makes me quite Plutonic. And that is all about healing. All this, the Scorpio stuff, and my moon in Scorpio, Midheaven in Scorpio, North Node in Scorpio, Uranus in Scorpio, and Pluto in the 8th house means that I have a lot of Scorpio influence and energy. And Scorpio is about transformation. It is about healing. So I also, again, Mars and Saturn in Cancer, again, I believe that's about healing. This part is where I have to be careful, because those are both kind of, can be malefic, can be harmful, can be damaging because of their intensity. Same with Pluto. I'm not sure if Mars is not considered malefic, but I don't believe but Saturn and Pluto are. So they're the ones that we really need to examine as to, I mean, all of the I mean, even if Jupiter was in certain signs, it could be overbearing or oppressive, or if Jupiter was in Capricorn or Scorpio, it could have some overbearing, oppressive characteristics, probably, depending on where it is. But so having my Mars and Saturn in Cancer, those could be kind of toxic and detrimental. So I think this is, I've had a lot of relationship challenges and dysfunction, and this is an area that I'm really wanting to refine and evolve, so that I'm using these things wisely. And I feel like that's where I have a lot of power, and that's why I've been disempowered, because they haven't been kind of claimed by me. So this whole dark empath thing, I'm becoming to understand it more, and I think that and I've come across this term before, and it resonated with me. I felt like it fit me. I think that the dark empath becomes the Heyoka, because the Heyoka is a kind of non-traditional healer. He's a healer that pushes boundaries and triggers people, and is provocative and breaks the rules, and is confrontational and kind of pokes the wound, pokes the area that's needing attention. And when I look at my life, it's like there's a lot of breadcrumbs leading up to this, me owning this, and it's I feel like I know a lot about it. I feel like I understand it. My fascination with Buto, I think, really, to me, Buto is very Heyoka. And yeah, I just kind of love that idea, because I think that what it does is it takes these kind of elements within me and gives them a context that harmonizes them all. Instead of being this like empath that is just becomes like this psychic dumping ground. It's a transformation of that energy. Sometimes people do need to be given one swift backhand, like in the most loving way. And I think that Heyoka actually has that rare kind of skill of being able to do that, of navigating the nuance of that. It's very fine line. It's a very fine line where, because the thing is, the whole point is having the recipient of the Heyoka's attention is for them to wake up, is for them to transcend the previous limitations. And that's the problem that most of us have, is because we're in these kind of ruts mentally, and so we're not even seeing the signs that the universe is giving us of take this off ramp here, or take this opportunity, or trust, or let go. This combination of things that lock us into this robotic way of being. And so the Heyoka is a disruptor. And I think it's something that only someone who's been to hell and back a number of times can do, because you have to be fearless. You have to be fearless about the response you're going to get. And you have to be very caring and sensitive too, to just get it right. To know how much provocation and then backing off. And also that it's not coming from this ego place, it's not coming from resentment, it's not coming from manipulation. I mean, there is some manipulation there, and it is about crossing boundaries. It is about catalyzing somebody, and so you are triggering them. And I know this doesn't fit into the like be nice and new age boundary stuff, which is something that I'm wrestling with. But when I look at it, because I think that boundaries are important, mostly what's important with boundaries, I think, is our ability to assert them and defend them, not other people respecting them, because that's this messy thing where if we get our back up because somebody didn't respect our boundaries, well, did they know what our boundaries were? Were we explicit about where they are? Because too often we just make assumptions and we get super reactive when somebody crosses the line, but they didn't know. We need to be really clear and not get too hoity about it, right? This overreaction is a pretty clear sign that we're defensive, overly defensive about something because we're insecure about it. And so the universe is going to throw these sacred clowns at us to wake us up. And that can come in so many different ways. You can, I mean, I don't think that there's a lot of sacred clowns. I don't think there's a lot of people that play this role because we don't live in a culture that celebrates it. There was previous cultures that actually, were based in a shamanic relationship with the universe. Now we're so mechanistic and we're so rigid and robotic, and enslaved by these ideologies. Be nice, be kind. That just flattens everything. And yeah, I see through it all. I see through it all. And see, the thing is I've seen through it forever. Going way back, I've seen through it. It really bothered me. See, this is what I have to get over. Is like taking the stupidity of the world personally. Like taking it on this over seriousness. I think because I have Capricorn rising, this, and again, this is something that I need to evolve, because so Capricorn in its kind of negative manifestation is going to be highly rigid and serious about everything. But I think in a more evolved form actually has a tremendous amount of faith and belief in a natural order. And so there's like a transcending of the idea of evil. Lower down, there's it's about necessary evil. There's an awareness of good and evil and quite purposeful in well, I think there can be all sorts of rationalization of necessary evil. And then as the struggle and the striving kind of it can teach us. So for example, maybe you work really hard and have a beautiful house and have all these things, and then a tornado comes and you don't have insurance and it's all gone in a moment. And then you come to this place of like, well, what is this? What's life about? This is unfair. I put everything into it. And so I think as I've felt, I think having Capricorn rising is this feeling, this tremendous feeling about the importance of right and wrong and the heaviness of that. A feeling that God is watching me all the time, and that I have a tremendous weight and burden and responsibility of purpose. But I also am able to tap into this place that I think is when I have climbed up to a certain height through discipline, through focus, where I see that everything is okay. Everything fits into the grand design. You know, you're up high in a skyscraper and you look down and you just see everybody like ants. And it seems like ridiculous. It seems like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, all this busyness, running around and moving this here and that, and thinking that, you know, the shekels are important. Just chill out at the top of a mountain. Just bliss out with God. So that's where I want to be with it. I've touched into that. And I think from that place, that is where the Heyoka hails from, stays in touch with that. And so it's kind of beyond good and evil. It's just seeing, it's seeing the bigger picture. So sometimes boundaries need to be transgressed. If they're too weak, for example, maybe they need to be strengthened by some challenge, by somebody challenging them. And I believe this is the case for me. I've learned a lot through tribulation, through hardship, through Saturn's discipline, through the harm, through the hurt. Trying to make sense of that. Like, what am I supposed to do about it? That's the tricky, but that's where the responsibility comes back on me, instead of the like victim and the blaming and the whatever. Again, another nuance is like, what does forgiveness mean? Does it mean that you let that person continue to be in your life and whatever? I don't think so. I think it's okay to cut people out of your life. I don't believe that we have an obligation. And it may be perfectly right for them. We just have to, the important thing is listening within, getting in touch with these broader perspectives that we can get in touch with. So like deep within us, and, you know, above and below, and just this kind of web work of expandedness that we can tap into in various ways, whether it be through dreams, whether it be through art. This is the whole premise of magic, is expanding your consciousness, is changing your reality by changing your consciousness. And most people don't understand this. They don't have a clue, and they're using things to change their consciousness temporarily. It's a very weak way of doing it, because it's using worldly methods. So alcohol and drugs, shopping, Botox, all these things. They're very weak ways of changing your consciousness. And they're quite ineffective. They're a kind of magic, right? Listening to a song on the radio and you feel different. All the power is outside of you. You're dependent on your Spotify account. Whereas if you can play an instrument, right? Now you are initiating something. Playing an instrument is magic. It's absolutely magic. Any art form is magic. And magic can be in anything. Magic can be in poking somebody that needs to be poked, that's asking to be poked because they got a stick up their butt. Not literally, because I guess that would be kind of being poked, but the whole point of being like anal, like being uptight, overly serious, and You know, Capricorn, people with Saturnian and Capricornian influence, they learn this through their own, they quickly learn about karma. They realize, like, it's kind of, the call is coming from within the house. You quickly learn from your own actions and inactions. And this is why it's a very powerful sign. This is where it can go wrong too, because you realize that kind of you're the one that's deciding whether something's good or evil. And you can rationalize doing things. And you can see how it's not necessarily just, the world is not just. It's the people who succeed are the ones that just do things and rationalize it within themselves. And ultimately that's what's happening. That's what's happening. There's not a clear-cut good and evil. There's nuance. There's infinite nuance. So we can't live by rules, especially somebody else's rules. We really are going to be the most powerful when we're in the moment and we're tapped in to the source within us. And that's kind of this like new agey thing. But it doesn't, I don't think it needs too much further definition. Because if you just do the basic kind of practices, not basic, I don't know. If you just find a doorway, it's like finding a doorway to Narnia. And look for those doorways. Most people are not going to do that until their life turns to shit, or a Heroka comes along and pokes them a bunch. You know, just some flying monkeys come into their life, and you know, this is where healing comes in, when you can be grateful for the hardship. Again, it doesn't mean that you need to let more of it happen. No, we're meant to learn from it and grow some thorns. Claim our power, our ability to assert ourselves in the world, to express ourselves. Because all of that is creative. All of it is our personal art form of remaking the world. Cleaning your house and arranging your space can be an art form. The path of the hearth fire. And just arranging your space in a certain way that gives you a feeling. Of course, the next step is realizing you can have that feeling without doing that. If you remember what the feeling is when you've cleaned your house, you can just have that feeling. If you train your mind and you recognize that feeling and you use your imagination, you can have that feeling unconditionally. We can have any of the feeling states unconditionally. We can be in the middle of hell and feel peace and bliss and joy because we're not dependent on the conditions around us. That's obviously pretty much enlightenment. And I think that, you know, the earth is an opportunity for us to learn unconditionality. The interplay of understanding, seeing ourselves in how we play with the conditions. The world is a magic mirror and it reflects to us, but we are obscuring it often because it shows us too much that we're not quite ready to see. But it's ultimately a deeper level of us that's deciding that. It's not the ego. Otherwise, everything would just be kosher all the time. And like I said previously, you know, it would just be hot tub sex all the time, which obviously is not. It's not. That's not a life. Life is meant to have a mix of as many experiences as we're willing to embrace. I do believe that there is a part of us that is orchestrating our life. There's many parts of it. It's happening all the way through from this very godlike dimension, trickling down the layers, the multidimensional layers and lenses, and finally arriving in this world. And where is that place that's in our body and our egoic identity? But that's just the icing on the cake. I mean, because it's fractal, it's the whole cake in the icing. But when we're tasting the icing, are we like really savoring it? Are we really like noticing like the subtle lemon peel and the, you know, whatever else you could put in icing to be subtle? So I feel like, you know, there's evolution here, and I feel good about it. I feel really good about it. And I think that is a huge lesson. We're steered away from certain things. We're taught through our suffering to course correct. If we're suffering, we're grinding gears and we're driving with the brake on. And if we keep doing it and we're just like trying to put more gas, then we're going to wear ourselves out, and we're going to have some even bigger messages. And humans will take it to the brutal extreme. I sat with a guy yesterday. He was begging, sitting on a bench, had a sign about how his life had gone wrong. Only 7 years older than me. And, you know, I couldn't help but think, why somebody would carry on and not just die. His body was totally broken. He had some, you know, the medical system had put some rods in his back, but he was permanently hunched, and he just was so broken, and I think, you know, an addict, and just in such a brutal place. And I just sat with him and listened and gave him some money and had compassion for him. I didn't poke him because he's already in this state where he could gain some insight. In fact, when I listened to him, I heard wisdom, and so that was kind of the lesson, because like as he's telling me the first part and I'm observing him, I'm thinking, wow, just let go and go on to the next life. Like, how can you turn this around? Every day must be hell. But then I hear how, kind of between the lines, how he's hoping to get clean. He didn't even say that, but that's what I just... And then when he feels more presentable, then he'll go live with his kids. It seemed like it's an option now, but I think he's ashamed for the state that he's in. So there's wisdom there, and I think that that's probably why he's hanging on, because he's still learning. He's still learning from the process, and it's a brutal lesson. And humans will take it to this level, I think the soul will take it to this level, but it's not necessary. It doesn't need to be so extreme. But if we're not listening, if we're not receiving the lessons that the universe is sending us, it gets louder and louder and louder, and more extreme. And this is the whole point of spirituality. This is the entire point of spirituality, is aligning ourselves with the universe so that we suffer less, so that we learn our lessons, and that we become better. And in becoming better, we feel better, we be better, we level up. And leveling up doesn't mean there's no more lessons, but they become a lot more interesting and enjoyable when we're proactive. And this is like the self-help. When you get onto the self-help thing, I see this as like there's a pathway, and then there's a doorway, and then there's a pathway. And when you get to this doorway, it's an initiation, and there's many doorways, but when we embrace those doorways, when we embrace these things that happen in our life as initiations, and we clue in to their benefit, then we invite them. We embrace them. And then shit can get crazy. Like then it may seem like all hell breaks loose. But that's when you really begin to wake up. And then it's more like you're driving a very expensive car. And it's a bit terrifying, but it's also fun. And you probably run over a few old ladies, but they had a lot of arthritis, and they actually said to God, please let me go. And you just help them out. So yeah, I don't plan on running over any old ladies, but this is what I'm embracing, that this is actually the healing of the dark empath. This is the next stage of the dark empath, who's internalized the world's suffering and moved past the martyr and victimhood part of it. I believe that in at least one other life, I have memories, I believe of several, of being a very intent follower of Jesus. And idolizing the martyrdom, idolizing the suffering. And I think a lot of this is, I believe many people have gone through this. This is, in the last 2,000 years, there's probably been millions and millions of people that have gone through this similar kind of thing of like, because their life sucked so tragically, so they were so poor or suffering or whatever. And then the thing that lifted them out of that was the story of Jesus, and that good could come from the greatest horror. And it's a paradoxical, really, really weird story that I think has been absolutely not. I think it has absolutely been used for evil by probably primarily the Catholic Church. But there's a grain of truth in everything, but what I'm saying is that I think previously this was like something within me, which is why I believe that I was born to a mother who also, she probably maybe she was a nun in a convent and in another life. Maybe I have several different visions and storylines, and are they real? It doesn't matter, because they take up space in my psyche and they feel vivid. So I think that in understanding hypnotherapy, understanding the psyche, it's almost like it's real to me, so it has an impact. And in examining it as a real thing in me, then I can actually evolve it and work with it. So this whole kind of like crucifixion thing feels relevant to me. But then I was born on Good Friday. I was born on the day of crucifixion. And my name, Jesse, is related to the name Jesus. It's actually the same, it's a biblical name, and was the patriarch of the line of David. So Jesse was the first and Jesus was the last. Well, maybe it wasn't the last, but as far as this family tree, whatever. So I feel I have this connection to Jesus. I tap into that energy, and I believe in the power of Jesus. I believe in the power of Christ. That's what I believe, because Christ consciousness, I think, is the soul of humanity. And I believe that it is this benevolent being that the human heart is imbued with. And I think the teachings of Jesus are they overlap with a lot of the other wisdom teachings. I do not believe for a moment that organized religion is worth following. I think it pretty much always leads astray, because it's like a bit of truth and a bit of lies, and so that's just a mess. If Christ is inside of us, then that's where you go to meet him. And Jesus was a rebel. Jesus was a shit disturber. And that's why they crucified him. So again, I think that fits me too, because I've been a bit of a troublemaker at times. I've crossed boundaries, not maliciously, but just because I'm rambunctious and energetic, and I have Uranus near the top of my chart. I'm just like that. That's just who I am. But I got crucified. I got punished. I got shamed. And so there's an inversion that occurred. There's the all that pain was internalized, and but I think I'm in this much more enjoyable part of it, where there's the healing, and maybe that's just the recognition. But I think really using this archetype of the Heyoka and recognizing myself in that is the real gift. And so that begins a new chapter. And the video is about to automatically end because they only will do 30 minutes. So I'm going to end it here. Okay, bye.